Okay, so up next is a guy that has been high on everybody's list this season. And it's no surprise that Jaylen Johnson is garnering a lot of attention already during this offseason. He is primarily the number one target for a lot of teams looking for that next number one cornerback. And interestingly, though, Johnson had a few comments this postseason that I guess kind of worried me about his opportunity to be able to become a Detroit Lion. But there's always that slim chance. And earlier in the video, I was talking about Leonard Floyd and how he made a comment that he wanted to be all about the money. It didn't matter where he was going, it was all about the money. But Jaylen Johnson kind of said the same thing, or he said exactly the same thing when he had this quote. And that was, "My heart's definitely in Chicago. Mine's definitely on the money." So his heart wants to stay in Chicago. His mind is always about the money. And then he goes on to say, "So, I mean, we'll figure out if we can make them both come together and get something done. I'm looking forward to see what's to come." So that tells me already that he's looking for a big payday, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy had an insanely good season, one of the best seasons a cornerback has ever had. And his cap number is probably going to float between 14 and 17 million already. That's what his valuation is, at least at this point. Who knows if he's going to be able to command more on the free agent market? My only question here is, Brad Holmes has the money to do it. Would you rather take care of the biggest weakness on your team, which is clearly the defensive backs, and solidify it by adding a guy that is familiar with your division and someone that carries the intangibles and has the ability to play at a high level? Yes, you're still going to need to draft somebody. And yes, you can still afford to get everybody else signed. Here's my first question for you. In the comments, let me know this. If you honestly had the ability to get a Josh Allen at $25 million a year, or a Jaylen Johnson and an AJ Epinesa combined at $22 million a year, what would you do? I think I know the answer, because, or at least what most of you would say, is the latter: Jaylen Johnson, AJ Epinesa. The bad news is I'm expecting that the Bears could potentially already be thinking about using the franchise tag. And if that happens, Ryan Poles says, he's not so sure, and whether he wants to use it or not, but he had this to say. He said after the season that Johnson is not going to go anywhere, and we'll work through it to get something done. So I guess what that means, is, are they going to use the franchise tag and utilize that to buy themselves some more time to get a deal done? I mean, it's a trick that everyone plays. And I guess if the franchise tag is available for him and they're not going to use it on anybody else, well, I think there's your answer. So unless the team wants to come in and overpay Jaylen Johnson, once he's tagged, he's tagged. But let's take a look at why he makes sense. And first and foremost, I mean, this guy really had an incredible season. Two things. Jaylen Johnson's exceptional year boil down to two things. First, in coverage, and third, in SCOE. And SCOE, or we'll call it the SCO metric, it kind of weighs the player, in their coverage duties and how well they played and their future success. And he ranked third. So exceptional season. I mean, he averaged over the season 90.8 overall, 91 in coverage, 67.2 in run defense. Just an insane year. Absolutely insane year. Let's look at the top 5 teams that he had success against. And I'll give you a hint. The Lions are not in the top 5. Minnesota, week 12. I don't believe Jefferson was playing in that game. I could be wrong. But he had a 92.7 overall on defense, 92.9 in coverage. And a few of his stats, he had 1 interception in that game, 2 pass breakups. He only gave up 3 yards a yak. He also was targeted 5 times, only gave up 2 receptions for 4 yards. Insane. Against Kansas City, his second best game of the season, 85.7 on defense overall, 90 in coverage. And in that game, he was targeted 4 times, 1 reception, minus 1 yards. Another insane game. 1 pass breakup, no interceptions. His third best overall game came against the Las Vegas Raiders, and 85.0 overall on defense, 87 in coverage. Now, all 3 of those games, he averaged a 75.4 tackle rate. Exceptional. I mean, that was one of our biggest Achilles heels this season, was our poor performance in tackling. Something that is so fundamental that they've been doing their entire life playing football. The Lions struggle with tackling. And against the Raiders, he had 2 interceptions, no pass breakups. He was targeted 6 times, 2 receptions for 16 yards. The guy gave up 195 yards this entire season. He was targeted 50 times. He gave up 25 receptions, 50% reception rate. Now, I get it. He wasn't targeted a ton, but there's a reason for it. Nobody wanted to throw at the guy. He did end up with 4 interceptions and 6 pass breakups on the season. So pretty darn good season overall. As far as snap counts go, 2023, 279 run defense, 809 total for the season. His tackling percentage overall, though, for some reason, it's a little bit lower overall. And I don't understand why, because when you look at every game, 75, 75, 76, 72, 77, 73, 76, and then 75. So he was either, really, really good, averaging a 75. I guess he, was kind of bad, averaging a 35 in all of the other games, which would be 2, 4, 6 games out of the season. He was averaging about a 35 PFF grade for tackling, which is terrible. So I guess that's the one big concern teams are going to have, is his tackling rate. But if nobody's throwing at the guy, he shouldn't be tackling a whole lot, right? He should be getting his hat in on, the run game, but that's about it. I'm more interested in this guy stopping these huge pass games that teams have been able to have against us this last season. That has to stop. The bloodshed has got to stop. So again, I'll come back to my original question. You want to turn a weakness into a strength. You add a guy like Jaylen Johnson, and this defense wouldn't need another edge rusher, because we are getting enough pressure to where somebody like Jaylen Johnson can be the difference. Now, I'm not saying that's a wise idea. I still think that we go out and get a cornerback and either a really good defensive tackle or a pretty good, defensive end that can be a major upgrade over what we have right now. So Jaylen Johnson, there you have it, man. Dude absolutely played incredible this season. I hope that he leaves Chicago, because I don't want our team to have to continue to go up against it. But I would even love for it more if the guy would put on the Honolulu Blue and join us next season for a Super Bowl run, because he's a guy that can help us get there. All right, so that's it for this episode. I appreciate you all tuning in. You guys are the best sponsors and supporters of this channel. I would appreciate if you guys take a moment and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be getting back to it, man. 3 weeks of being sick. I'm finally feeling okay, so I'm ready to jam out. We got about 50 more videos coming at you here for the rest of February. So let's rock it out together. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.